Samsaradava Nalalita Loka Tranaya Karanya Ganaganadvam
Samsaradava Nalanita Loka Pranaya Karunyaganatvam
Raptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda
Raptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Sri Charanaravindaṁ
Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditya Madhyan Manaswara Sena Romancha Kampa Shritayanga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Shri Vigrahara Dhananitya Nana Shingaratan Mandira Marjanado Yuktasya Bhaktam Shaniyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Chaturvidashi Bhagavad Prasado Swadhana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangan Kritaiva Triptim Bhajata Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Shri Radhika Madhavayora Para Madhurya Lila Guna Rupa Namnam Bhakti Shanasvadanalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Nikunjayuna Yatikeli Siddhai Yayali Bhiyuktira Pikshaniya Tatati Daksharati Valabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Sakshadare Dvina Samasa Shashir Uktasata Bhavyata Eva Sadvi Kintu Prabhoya Priyavatasya Vande Guru Shri Charanaravinda Yasya Prasadat Bhagavad Prasado Yasya Prasada Nagati Kutopi Dayam Suvam Sasya Yasya Sri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Sharanaravinda 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 Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Yara Nila Madhurada Nila Madhu Shri Radhe. Jaya Yara Nila Madhurada Nila Madhu Shri Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman Jaya Goranita Jaya Goranita Jaya Goranita Jaya Goranita Nitya Gora Haribo 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 Nitya Gora Haribo Jai Om Vishnu Pada Pramhamsa Parachak Acharya Shtota Shadashi Shrimatis Divine Grace Aparachana Rinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Bhaktivedanta Institute Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jai Om Vishnu Pada Pramhamsa Parachak Acharya Shtota Shadashi Shrimatis Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavanda Ki Jai Nama Acharya Srila Haridasa Ki Jai. Premise Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrajabhumi Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Navadvip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Shri Ayodhya Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Samavrita Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Harinama Sankirtana Ki Jai, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, all glory to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Namaste Narasimhaya Peladala Dadaine Hiranyakasi Purvasa Silatanka Nakhalae Ito Narshima Parato Narshima Yato Yato Yami Tato Narshima Bahe Narshima Hirade Narshima Narasimha Madim Sharanam Parpade Tavakara Kamalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shingha Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringha Keshavadhirta Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare Jai Jagadisha Hare केशवदीर्ता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जयो लक्ष्मी नरसिंहा जयो लक्ष्मी नरसिंहा लक्ष्मी नरसिंहा जयो लक्ष्मी नरसिंहा जयो भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद भक्त प्रहलाद जयो भक्त प्रहलाद जयो जयो प्रभुपाद 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 जयो जयो प्रभुपाद जय प्रभुपाद जय लक्ष्मी नरसिम्हा भगवान की जय श्री प्रहलाद महाराज की जय गौर परमानंद
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो ये अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो ये अभिलाषी जे तुम्हार शरण लोय तारा वंश पूर्ण होय कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास नयने हेरिबो सदा जुगल रूप राशि এই নিবেদন দারো সকিরানুগত করো সেবাধিকার দিয়ে করো নিজ দাসী দীন কৃষ্ণ দাসে কই এই জন মোর হয় श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा नबासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा नबासी यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्याधिकानि च तानि तानि प्राणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय वृंदा देवी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी जय तुलसी महारानी निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Shri Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya Priyaya Keshavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Pratideve Satyavataya Namo Namaha. Shri Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya Priyaya Keshavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Pratideve Satyavataya Namo Namaha. Shri Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya Priyaya Keshavasya Cha Vishnu Bhakti Pratideve Satyavataya Namo Namaha. Shri Vrindaya Devi Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai.
O Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow down before you again and again. My desire is to serve to Shri Radha and Krishna. However, take shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Bestow mercy upon him and make him a resident of Vrindavana. My desire also grant me residence in the precious growth of Shri Vrindavana Dham. Thus within my vision I shall always behold the beautiful paths of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of Karha Danso's Virgin. Please give me the privilege devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen lowly servant of Krishna prays. May I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai. There are 10 fences in the matter of chanting holy names that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider the name of the demigods of Lord Shiva or Brahma to be equal to the independent name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities and strengths of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritualistic activities, offering the Vedas fruit activities, karma, ganda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about glory of the holy name. 10. To adopt complete faith in the chanting holy names, and to maintain material attachments in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee claims to Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let us offer multiple obeisances on all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just as I trees who can fulfill to everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Jeto Darpanamarjanam Bhavamaha Davakni Nirvapanam Shriya Kairava Chantrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Pudivardhanam Pratipadam Purnamita Swadanam Sarvatmasnapanam Paravijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etatishi Tavakripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durudevami Tisham Iha Janina Nuragaha Trinatapi Sunijena Tarorapi Saishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya Sada Harihi Na Dhanam Na Janam Na Sundarim Kavitam Va Jagadisha Kamaye Mama Jammani Dhammanishvare Bhavata Bhaktir Haituki Tavai Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Bhavam Pada Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Sthita Duri Satesham Vichintaya Nayanam Galadashru Daraya Vatanam Gad Gada Rudaya Gira Pulakai Nichitam Vapur Kada Tava Nama Karhane Bhavishati Yuga itam nimishena chakshusha pravisha itam shunya itam jaga sarvam govinda virahe name ashirishava padaratam pinnastumam adarshanam marmhatam karotuva Yatha tatha va vidathatu lampato mad prana natastu sa eva na paraha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam Ki Jai. Glory to the Sri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of all the dust I create for years and extinguishes fire of conditional life for repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is a prime benediction for humanity at large, because it expresses a reason and benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean transcendental bliss, and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone grant all benediction human beings. Thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names, you have vested all your transcendental energies. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out kindness enables us to easily approach you by holy names, but I am so unfortunate and have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. One should be more taller than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Sanhamananda Krishna, I am an eternal servitor, yet somehow I have fallen into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me at one's Adam's and lotus feet. O my Lord, while my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constant when I chant the holy name, while my voice choke up, all the hairs of my body stand and a recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I consider the moment to be like a great millennium. Tears are flowing from eyes like torrents of rain, and I feeling all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipable Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam Ki Jai. Shri Mangala Aarti Ki Jai. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshumritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahakana Ragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhuitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahakana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Bhajadade Shatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Satanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshabhani Videvi Daidaya Kripaptaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhavin Namaha Madhuryurjala Premadya Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktita Shri Gaura Karana Shakti Vigrahaya Namostute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupa Nuga Viruddha Pasitanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaura Kishoraya Saksha Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaura Virbhava Bhumistvam Nirdishta Sajana Priyaha Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shri Jaganathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpa Durubhishya Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurateshe Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakham Namami Bhakta Shaktikam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinapanto Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Jayatam Suratoro Pangor Mamamanda Matergati Masarvasva Padam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Ti Ved Vindaranya Kalpadurmadaha Shimadra Nagara Singhasanasto Shimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prishtaribi Sevamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tata Stitaha Karshang Venustaner Gopir Gopinatha Shiyestunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavanishvari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Dadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Mangalacharna Prayers Ki Jai Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadya Radya Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam Chintamani Parakara Satmasu Kalpraviksha Raksha Riteshu Surabhi Rabi Palayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasam Brahmasevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Venum Kavanantam Aravinda Dalaya Daksham Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Gantarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chantakala Savanamara Vamshi Ranang Kadam Panayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tripanga Lalitam Yata Prakasham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ankanyasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pashanti Panti Karayanti Chayam Jaganti Ananda Chimmay Sadujala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achotam Anadi Mananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durabam Adurabam Atma Bhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Shatavassara Sampragamyo Vayuratapi Manaso Munipangavanan Sopi Asti Yat Prapadasimya Vichinta Tatve Govindam Mahadi Purusha Tamaham Pajami Ekopi Asara Chaitum Jagatanta Kotim Ya Chakti Rasti Jagatanta Chaya Dantaha Antantarastha Paramanu Chayantarastham Govindam Mahadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Yad Bhava Bhavitadiyo Manuchastateva Samprapya Rupa Mahimasana Yana Bhushaha Suktaryam Eva Nikama Patitai Stuvanti Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Ananda Chimmaya Rasa Patibhavitabi Stapya Evan Jarupa Tayakalabihi Goloka Eva Nivasati Kilatama Bhutto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Premanjana Churuta Bhakti Vilochanena Santa Sadeva Hidayeshu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundam Achintya Guna Swarupam Govindam Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murtishu Kalanyamena Tishtan Nanavataram Karo Bhuvaneshu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramapumam Yo Govindam Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacocks, feather with the figure of beauty, tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique love lionesses charming millions of cupids.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always reveals in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Siam Sandar is eternally manifest.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of the transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blossoming youth, or blooming youth.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis, who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane extending over thousands of millions of years.
He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor. There, thereof, in his work of erection of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe. At one and the same time, such is the primeval Lord whom I adore.
I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Shama Sundara, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their own heart of hearts with the eye of devotion, tinged with the salve of love.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Ram, Narasimha, Vamana, etc. as his subjective portions.
Sri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Bhagavad Gita purport 7.1. Srinvatam swakata Krishna punya sravana kirtanaha hridayanta histohi abhadrani vidunoti suhritsatam nasta prayesva abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama sloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki tada rajastamo bhava kama lobha dayaschai चेत एतेरनावीदं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति एवं प्रसन्नमनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते विद्यते हृदयग्रन्थेश्चिद्यन्ते सर्वसमस्याः क्षीयन्ते च कर्माणि दृष्टा एवात्मनीश्वरे.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best-wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him.
Alternate translation from Bhagavad Gita. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the signs of God perfectly.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of asamsayam samagaram, understanding the supreme absolute truth, personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or his devotee in Krishna consciousness, one can understand the science of Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, 1 and 2. Arjuna uvacha prakritim purusham jaiva kshetram kshetrajnanam evacha etad veditam ichchami jnanam jnayam cha keshava. Sri Bhagavan uvacha idam sariram kaunteya kshetram iti abhidhiyate etad yo veti tam purprahu kshetrajna iti tadvidaha. Arjuna uvacha, Arjuna said, Prakritim, nature, Purusham, the enjoyer, Cha, also, Eva, certainly, Kshetram, the field, Kshetrajnam, the knower of the field, Eva, certainly, Cha, also, Etat, all this, Veditam, to understand, Ichchami, I wish, Jnanam, knowledge, Jnayam, the object of knowledge, Cha, also, Keshava, O Krishna, Sri Bhagavan uvacha, the personality of Godhead said, Idam, this, Shariram, body, Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Kshetram, the field, Iti thus abhidhiyate is called eta this yah one who veti knows tam he prahu is called kshetrajna the knower of the field iti thus tat vida by those who know this. Arjuna said, O translation, O my dear Krishna, I wish to know about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, and the field, and the knower of the field, and of knowledge and the object of knowledge. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, This body, O son of Kunti, is called the field, and one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Arjuna was inquisitive about Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer, Kshetra, the field, Kshetrajya, its knower, and knowledge and the object of knowledge. When he inquired about all these, Krishna said that this body is called the field, and that one who knows this body is called the knower of the field. This body is the field of activity for the conditioned soul. The conditioned soul is entrapped in material existence, and he attempts to lord it over material nature. And so, according to his capacity to dominate material nature, he gets a field of activity. That field of activity is the body. And what is the body? The body is made of senses. The conditioned soul wants to enjoy sense gratification, and according to his capacity to enjoy sense gratification, he is offered a body or field of activity. Therefore, the body is called the kshetra or the field of activity for the conditioned soul. Now, the person who identifies himself with the body is called kshetrajna, the knower of the field. It is not very difficult to understand the difference between the field and its knower. The body and the knower of the body. Any person can consider that from childhood to old age he undergoes so many changes of body, and yet he is still one person remaining. Thus, there is a difference between the knower of the field of activities and the actual field of activities. A living conditioned soul can thus understand that he is different from the body. It is described in the beginning, Dehinosmin, that the living entity is within the body, and that the body is changing from childhood to boyhood, and from boyhood to youth, and from youth to old age. And the person who owns the body knows that the body is changing. The owner is distinctly kshetrajna. Sometimes we think I am happy, I am a man, I am a woman, I am a dog, I am a cat. These are the bodily designations of the knower, but the knower is different from the body. Although we may use many articles, our clothes, etc., we know that we are different from the things we used. Similarly, we also understand by a little contemplation that we are different from the body. I or you or anyone else who owns the body is called Kshetrajna, the knower of the field of activities, and the body is called Kshetra, the field of activities itself. In the first 6 chapters of Bhagavad Gita, the knower of the body, the living entity, and the position by which he can understand the Supreme Lord are described. In the middle 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the relationship between the individual soul and the super soul in regard to devotional service are described. The superior position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the subordinate position of the individual soul are definitely defined in these chapters. The living entities are subordinate under all circumstances, but in their forgetfulness they are suffering. When enlightened by pious activities, they approach the Supreme Lord in different capacities as the distressed, those in want of money, the inquisitive, and those in search of knowledge. That is also described. Now, starting with the 13th chapter, how the living entity comes into contact with the material nature and how he is delivered by the Supreme Lord through the different methods of fruitive activities, cultivation of knowledge, and the discharge of devotional service are explained. Although the living entity is completely different from the material body, he somehow becomes related. This is also explained.
क्षेत्रज्ञं चापि मां विद्धि सर्वक्षेत्रेषु भारत क्षेत्रज्ञोर्ज्ञानं यत्यज्ञानं मतं मम Kshetrajnanam, the knower of the field. Cha also, api certainly. Mam, me, Vidhi, no, Sarva, all, Kshetreshu, in bodily fields. Bharata, O son of Bharata. Kshetra, the field of activities, the body. Kshetrajnahu, the knower of the field. Jnanam, knowledge of Yat, that which. Tat, that. Jnanam, knowledge. Matam, opinion. Mama, my. Ocean of Bharata, you should understand that I am also the knower in all bodies, and to understand this body and its knower is called knowledge. That is my opinion. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. While discussing the subject of the body and knower of the body, the soul and the super soul, we shall find three different topics of study: the Lord, the living entity, and matter. In every field of activities, in every body, there are two souls, the individual soul and the super soul. Because the super soul is the plenary expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, Krishna says, I am also the knower, but I am not the individual knower of the body. I am the super knower. I am present in everybody as a Paramatma or super soul. One who studies the subject matter of the field of activity and the knower of the field very minutely in terms of this Bhagavad Gita can attain to knowledge. The Lord says, I am the knower of the field of activities in every individual body. The individual may be the knower of his own body, but he is not in knowledge of other bodies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present as the super soul in all bodies, knows everything about all bodies. He knows all the different bodies of all the various species of life. A citizen may know everything about his patch of land, but the king knows not only his palace but all the properties possessed by the individual citizens. Similarly, one may be the proprietor of the body individually, but the Supreme Lord is the proprietor of all bodies. The king is the original proprietor of the kingdom, and the citizen is the secondary proprietor. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is the supreme proprietor of all bodies. The body consists of the senses. The Supreme Lord is Hrishikesha, which means the controller of the senses. He is the original controller of the senses, just as the king is the original controller of all the activities of the state. The citizens are secondary controllers. The Lord says, I am also the knower. This means that he is the super knower. The individual soul knows only his particular body. In the Vedic literature, it is stated as follows. Kshetrani hi sarirani bijam chapi subhashube tani vitti sa yogatma tatah kshetrajna uchyate. This body is called the Kshetra, and within it dwells the owner of the body and the Supreme Lord who knows both the body and the owner of the body. Therefore, he is called the knower of all fields. The distinction between the field of activities, the knower of activities, and the super knower of activities is described as follows. Perfect knowledge of the constitution of the body, the constitution of the individual soul, and the constitution of the super soul is known in terms of Vedic literature as Jnana, that is the opinion of Krishna. To understand both the soul and the super soul as one and distinct is knowledge. One who does not understand the field of activity and the knower of the activity is not in perfect knowledge. One has to understand the position of Prakriti, nature, Purusha, the enjoyer of nature, and Ishvara, the knower who dominates or controls nature and the individual soul. One should not confuse the three in different capacities. One should not confuse the painter, the painting, and the easel. This material world, which is a field of activities, is nature, and the enjoyer of nature is a living entity, and above them both is the supreme controller, the personality of Godhead. It is stated in the Vedic language in the Shveteshvatara Upanishad 1.12, Bhokta Bhogyam Preritaram Chamatva Sarvam Proktam Trividam Brahmam Etat. There are three Brahman conceptions. Prakriti is Brahmana as a field of activities, and the Jiva, individual soul, is also Brahman and is trying to control the material nature, and the controller of both of them is also Brahman, but he is the factual controller. In this chapter, it will also be explained that out of the two knowers, one is fallible and another is infallible. One is superior and the other is subordinate. One who understands the two knowers of the field to be one and the same contradicts the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who states here very clearly, I am also the knower of the field of activity. One who misunderstands a rope to be a serpent is not in knowledge. There are different kinds of bodies and there are different owners of the bodies, because each individual soul has his individual capacity for lording it over material nature. There are different bodies, but the Supreme also is present in them as a controller. The word cha is significant, for it indicates the total number of bodies. That is the opinion of Srila Baladeva Vidyabhushana. Krishna is the super soul present in each and everybody apart from the individual soul. And Krishna explicitly says here that real knowledge is to know that the super soul is the controller of both the field of activities and the finite enjoyer.
Tatshitram yakshayat iksham yat vikari yataschayat sachayo yat prabhavascha tat samashena me shinu. Tat that, kshetram field of activities, yat what, cha also, yatrik as it is, cha also, yat having what, vikari changes, yata from which, cha also, yat what, sa he, cha also, yahu yat having what, prabhava influence, cha also, that, samashena in summary, me from, me, shanu understand. Now please hear my brief description of this field of activity and how it is constituted, what its changes are, whence it is produced, who is that knower of the field of activities is, and what his influences are. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord is describing the field of activities and the knower of the field of activities in their constitutional positions. One has to know how this body is constituted, the materials of which this body is made, under whose control this body is working, how the changes are taking place, where from the changes are coming, what the causes are, what the reasons are, what the ultimate goal of the individual soul is, and what the actual form of the individual soul is. One should also know the distinction between the individual living soul and the super soul, their different influences, their potentials, etc. One just has to understand this Bhagavad Gita directly from the description given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all this will be clarified. But one should be careful not to consider the Supreme Personality of Godhead in every body to be one with the individual soul, the jiva. This is something like equating the potent and the impotent.
Recibir Bahuda Gitam Chandobir Vidhai Birtak Brahma Sutra Padayas Chava Hetu Mabhir Vinusitya. Recipe by the wise sages, Bahuda in many ways, Gitam described, Chandopi in Vedic hymns, Vidhai, various, Pratak, variously, Brahma Sutra of the Vedanta, Pade by the aphorisms, Cha also, Eva certainly, Hetu Madbi with cause and effect, Vinisita certain. That knowledge of the field of activities and the knower of activities is described by various sages in various Vedic writings. It is especially presented in Vedanta Sutra with all reasoning as to cause and effect. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the highest authority in explaining this knowledge. Still, as a matter of course, learned scholars and standard authorities always give evidence from previous authorities. Krishna is explaining this most controversial point regarding the duality and non-duality of the soul and the supersoul by referring to a scripture, the Vedanta, which is accepted as authority. First, he says this is according to different sages. As far as the sages are concerned, besides himself, Vyasadeva, the author of the Vedanta Sutra, is a great sage, and in the Vedanta Sutra, duality is perfectly explained. And Vyasadeva's father, Parasara, is also a great sage, and he writes in his books of religiosity, Aham Dvam Ja Tatanye. We, you, I, and the various other living entities are all transcendental, although in material bodies. Now we are fallen into the ways of the three modes of material nature according to our different karma. As such, some are on the higher levels, some are on the lower nature. The higher and lower natures exist due to ignorance and are being manifested in an infinite number of living entities. But the supersoul, which is infallible, is uncontaminated by the three qualities of nature, and it is transcendental. Similarly, in the original Vedas, a distinction between the soul, the supersoul, and the body is made, especially in the Katha Upanishad. There are many great sages who have explained this, and Parasara is considered principal among them. The word Chandobi refers to the various Vedic literatures. The Taittiriya Upanishad, for example, which is a branch of the Yajurveda, describes nature, the living entity, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As stated before, Satriya is the field of activities, and there are two kinds of Satriya Jana: the living entity, the individual living entity, and the supreme living entity. As stated in the Taittiriya Upanishad, Brahma Pucham Pratistha, there is a manifestation of the Supreme Lord's energy known as Anamaya, dependence upon food for existence. There is a materialistic realization of the Supreme. Then, in Pranamaya, after realizing the Supreme Absolute Truth in food, one can realize the Absolute Truth in living symptoms or life forms. In Janamaya, realization extends beyond the living symptoms to the point of thinking, feeling, and willing. Then, there is Brahman realization called Vijnana Maya, in which the living entity's mind and life symptoms are distinguished from the living entity himself. The next and supreme stage is Anandamaya, realization of the all-blissful nature. Thus there are 5 stages of Brahman realization, which are called Brahman Pucham. Out of these, the first 3, Anamaya, Pranamaya, and Jananamaya, involve the fields of activities of the living entities. Transcendental to all these fields of activities is the Supreme Lord, called Anandamaya. The Vedanta Sutra also describes the Supreme by saying, Anandamayo Vyasat. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature full of joy. To enjoy his transcendental bliss, he expands into Vijnanamaya, Pranamaya, Jananamaya, and Anamaya. In the field of activities, the living entity is considered to be the enjoyer, and different from him is the Anandamaya. That means that if the living entity decides to enjoy in dovetailing himself with the Anandamaya, he becomes perfect. This is the real picture of the Supreme Lord as the supreme knower of the field, the living entity as the subordinate knower, and the nature of the field activities. One has to search for this truth in the Vedanta Sutra or Brahma Sutra. It is mentioned here that the codes of Brahma Sutra are very nicely arranged according to cause and effect. Some of the sutras are aphorisms are na vyad asrute, natma srute, and paratu takjure. The first aphorism indicates the field of activities, the second indicates the living entity, and the third indicates the Supreme Lord, the Samam Vanam, among all the manifestations of various entities.
Mahabhutani ahankaro buddhir avyaktam evacha indriyani dasai cha dasikaicha pancha chendriya gochara icha devesha dvesha sukam dukam sangatascena dritti etat chetram samasena savikaram udatam. Mahabhutani, the great elements, ahankara, the false ego, buddhi, intelligence, avyaktam, the unmanifested, eva, certainly, cha, also, indriyani, the senses, dasa, ekam, 11, cha, also, pancha, 5, cha, also, indriyana, gochara, indiya, gochara, the objects of the senses, icha, desire, dvesha, hatred, sukam, happiness, dukam, distress, sangataha, the aggregate, chetana, living symptoms, dritti, conviction, etat, all this, kshestram, the fields of activities, samasena, in summary, shavikram, with interactions, udratam, exemplified. Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The 5 great elements, false ego, intelligence, the unmanifested, and the 10 senses of the mind, the 5 sense objects, desire, hatred, happiness, distress, the aggregate, the life symptoms, and convictions, all these are considered in summary to be the fields of activities and its interactions. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. From all the authoritative statements of the great sages, the Vedic hymns, and the aphorisms of the Vedanta Sutra, the components of this world can be understood as follows. First, there are earth, water, fire, air, and ether. These are the 5 great elements, Mahabhuta. Then there are false ego, intelligence, and the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of nature. Then there are 5 senses for acquiring knowledge, the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Then 5 working senses, voice, legs, hands, anus, and genitals. Then above the senses there is the mind, which is within and which can be called the sense within. Therefore, including the mind, there are 11 senses altogether. Then there are the 5 objects of the senses: smell, taste, form, touch, and sound. Now the aggregate of these 24 elements is called the field of activity. If one makes an analytical study of these 24 subjects, then he can very well be understood the fields of activity. Then there are desire, hatred, happiness, and distress, which are interactions, representations of the 5 great elements in the gross body. The living symptoms, represented by consciousness and conviction, are the manifestation of the subtle body, mind, ego, and intelligence. These subtle elements are included within the field of activities. The 5 great elements are gross representations of the false ego, which is turn these subtle elements, the false ego, which it turns the primal stage of false ego, which is in turn represents the primal stage of false ego, technically called the materialistic conception of tasma buddhi, tamasa buddhi, intelligence and ignorance. This further represents the unmanifested stage of the 3 modes of material nature. The unmanifested modes of material nature are called pradana. One who desires to know the 24 elements in detail along with their interactions should study the philosophy in more detail. In Bhagavad Gita, a summary only is given. The body is the representation of all these factors, and there are changes of the body, which are 6 in number. The body is born, it grows, it stays, it produces byproducts, then it begins to decay, and at the last stage it vanishes. Therefore, the field is a non-permanent material thing. However, the Kshatriya Jnana, the knower of the field, is its proprietor, is different. 13.812.
अमानित्वं वदम्बित्वं अहिंसा क्षान्तिरार्जवम् आचार्योपासनं शौचं स्थैर्यम् आत्मविनिग्रहः इन्द्रियार्थेषु वैराग्यम् अनहङ्कार एव च जन्म मृत्यु जरा व्याधि दुःखदोषानुदर्शनम्. असक्तिरनभिस्वङ्गा पुत्रधारा गृहादिषु नित्यं च समचित्तत्वम् इष्टनिष्ठोपपातिषु मयि चानन्ययोगेन भक्तिरव्याभिचारिणी विविक्तदेशसेवितम् आरतिर्जनसंसदि आध्यात्मज्ञाननित्यत्वं तत्त्वज्ञानार्थदर्शनम् एतज्ज्ञानम् इति प्रोक्तम् अज्ञानं यदतोऽन्यथा. Amanitvam, humility. Adambitvam, pridelessness. Ahimsa, non-violence. Kshanti, tolerance. Arjavam, simplicity. Acharyopasanam, approaching a bona fide spiritual master. Saucham, cleanliness. Stairyam, steadfastness. Atma vinigraha, self-control. Indriyardeshu, in the matter of the senses. Vairagyam, renunciation. Anahankaraha, being without false egoism. Eva, certainly. Cha, also. Janma, of birth. Mrityu, death. Jara, old age. Vyadi, and disease. Dukkha, of the distress. Dosha, the fault.
Anudarshanam, observing. Asakti, being without attachment. Anabhiswanga, being without association. Putra, for son. Dara, wife. Grihadishu,
Wife.
home, etc. Nityam, constant. Cha, also. Samachittatvam, equilibrium. Ishta, the desirable. Anishta, and undesirable. Upapattishu, having obtained. Mayi, unto me. Cha, also. Ananya yogena, by unalloyed devotion service. Bhakti, devotion. Avyabhicharani, without any break.
Any break.
Vivikta, too solitary. Desha, places. Sevitam, aspiring. Arati, being without attachment. Jana Samsadi, to people in general. Adhyatma, pertaining to the self. Jnana, in knowledge. Nityatvam, constancy. Tattvajnana, of knowledge of the truth. Artha, for the object. Darshanam, philosophy. Etat, all this. Jnanam, knowledge. Iti, thus. Proktam, declared. Ajnanam, ignorance. Yat, that which. Atah, from this. Anyata, other. Translation. Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home, and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization, and philosophical search for the absolute truth, all these I declare to be knowledge, and besides this, whatever there may be, is ignorance.
We'll take turns for the purple because that lasts for like billions of pages for me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. This process of knowledge is sometimes misunderstood by less intelligent men as being the interaction of the field of activity, but actually this is the real process of knowledge. If one accepts this process, then the possibility of approaching this absolute truth exists. This is not the interaction of the 24 elements, as described before. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. The embodied soul is entrapped by the body, which is a casing made of the 24 elements. In the processes of knowledge are as described here is the means to get out of it. Of all the descriptions of the process of knowledge, the most important point is described in the first line of the 11th verse. Chananya yogena bhaktir avyapicharani. The process of knowledge terminates in unalloyed devotional service to the Lord. So if one does not approach or is not able to approach the transcendental service of the Lord, then the other 19 items are of no particular value. But if one takes to devotional service in full Krishna consciousness, the other 19 items automatically develop within him. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam 5.18.12, Yashashiti Bhaktir Bhagavati Akincha Na Sarvair Gunais tatra samaste samasate sura. All the good qualities of knowledge develop in one who has attained the stage of devotional service. The principle of attempting a spiritual master as mentioned in the 8th verse is essential. Even for one who takes to the devotional service, it is most important. Transcendental life begins when one accepts a bona fide spiritual master. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, clearly states here that this process of knowledge is the actual path. Anything speculated beyond this is nonsense. As for the knowledge
outlined here, the items may be analyzed as follows. Humility means that one should not be anxious to have the satisfaction of being honored by others. The material conception of life makes us very eager to receive honor from others. But from the point of view of a man in perfect knowledge, who knows that he is not this body, anything, honor or dishonor, pertaining to this body is useless. One should not be hankering after this material deception. People are very anxious to be famous for their religion, and consequently, sometimes it is found that without understanding the principles of religion, one enters into some group which is not actually following religious principles and then wants to advertise himself as a religious mentor. As for actual advancement in spiritual science, one should have a test to see how far he is progressing. He can judge by these items.
Non-violence is generally taken to mean not killing or destroying the body, but actually non-violence means not to put others into distress. People in general are trapped by ignorance in the material concept of life, and they perpetually suffer material pain. So unless one elevates people to spiritual knowledge, one is practicing violence. One should try his best to distribute real knowledge to the people, so that they may become enlightened and leave this material entanglement. That is non-violence.
Tolerance means that one should be practiced to bear insult and dishonor from others. If one is engaged in the advancement of spiritual knowledge, there will be so many insults and much dishonor from others. This is expected because material nature is so constituted. Even a boy like Prahlada, who only 5 years old was engaged in the cultivation of spiritual knowledge, was endangered when his father became antagonistic to his devotion. The father tried to kill him in so many ways, but Prahlada tolerated him. So there may be many impediments to making advancement in spiritual knowledge, but we should be tolerant and continue our progress with determination.
Simplicity means that without diplomacy, one should be so straightforward that he can disclose the real truth even to an enemy. As for acceptance of the spiritual master, that is essential, because without instruction of a bona fide spiritual master, one cannot progress in spiritual science. One should approach the spiritual master with all humility and offer him all services so that he will be pleased to bestow the blessings upon the disciple. Because a bona fide spiritual master is a representative of Krishna, if he bestows any blessings upon his disciple, that will make the disciple immediately advanced without the disciples following the regulative principles. Or the regulative principles will be easier for one who has served the spiritual master without reservation.
Cleanliness is essential for making advancement in spiritual life. There are two kinds of cleanliness. ex- ex- external and internal. External cleanliness means taking a bath, but for internal cleanliness, one has to think of Krishna always and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. This process cleans the accumulated dust of past karma from the mind.
Steadiness means that one should be very determined to make progress in spiritual life. Without such determination, one cannot make tangible progress. And self-control means that one should not accept anything which is detrimental to the path of spiritual progress. One should become accustomed to this and reject anything which is against the path of spiritual progress. This is real renunciation. The senses are so strong that they are always anxious to have sense gratification. One should not cater to these demands, which are not necessary. The senses should only be gratified to keep the body fit, so that one can discharge his duty in advancing in spiritual life. The most important and uncontrollable sense is the tongue. If one can control the tongue, then there is every possibility of controlling the other senses. The function of the tongue is to taste and to vibrate. Therefore, by systematic regulation, the tongue should always be engaged in tasting the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna and chanting Hare Krishna. As far as the eyes are concerned, they should not be allowed to see anything but the beautiful form of Krishna. That will control the eyes. Similarly, the ears should be engaged in hearing about Krishna, and the nose in smelling the flowers offered to Krishna. This is the process of devotional service. And it is understood here that Bhagavad Gita is simply expounding the science of devotional service. Devotional service is the main and sole objective. Unintelligent commentators on the Bhagavad Gita try to divert the mind of the reader to the other subjects, but there is no other subject in Bhagavad Gita than devotional service.
False ego means accepting this body as oneself. When one understands that he is not his body and his spirit soul, he comes to his real ego. Ego is there, false ego is condemned, but not real ego. In the Vedic literature, Brihadaranya Upanishad, it is said, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am spirit. This I am, the sense of self, also exists in liberated stage of self-realization. The sense of I am is ego, but when the sense of I am is applied to this false body, it is false ego. When the sense of self is applied to reality, then that is real ego. There are some philosophers who say we should give up our ego, but we cannot give up our ego because ego means identity. We ought of course, to give up the false identification with the body.
One should try to understand the distress of accepting birth, death, old age, and disease. There are descriptions in various Vedic literature of birth. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, the word of the unborn, the child's stay in the womb of the mother, its suffering, etc., are all very graphically described. It should be thoroughly understood that birth is distressful because we forget how much distress we have suffered within the womb of the mother. Womb of the mother. We do not make any solution to the repetition of birth and death. Similarly, at the time of death, there are all kinds of sufferings, and they are all mentioned in the authoritative scriptures. These should be discussed. And as far as disease and old age are concerned, everyone gets practical experience. No one wants to no no one wants to be diseased and no one wants to become old, but there is no avoiding these. Unless we have pessimistic view of this material life, concerning the distress of birth, death, old age, and disease, there is no impetus for our making advancement in spiritual life.
As for detachment from children, wife, and home, it is not meant that one should have no feelings for these. They are natural objects of affection. But when they are not favorable to spiritual progress, then one should not be attached to them. The best process for making the home pleasant is Krishna consciousness. If one is in full Krishna consciousness, he can make his home very happy. Because this process of Krishna consciousness is very easy. One need only chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Accept the remnants of foodstuff offered to Krishna. Have some discussion on books like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and engage oneself in deity worship. These four things will make one happy. One should train the members of his family in this way. The family members can sit down morning and evening and chant together Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If one can mold his family life in this way to develop Krishna consciousness, following these four principles, then there is no need to change from family life to renounced life. But if it is not congenial, not favorable for spiritual advancement, then family life should be abandoned. One must sacrifice everything to realize or serve Krishna, just as Arjuna did. Arjuna did not want to kill his family members, but when he understood that these family members were impediments to his Krishna realization, he accepted the instruction of Krishna and fought and killed them. In all cases, one should be detached from the happiness and distress of family life, because in this world, one can never be fully happy or fully miserable.
Happiness and distress are concomitant factors of material life. One should learn to tolerate as advised in Bhagavad Gita. One can never restrict the coming and going of happiness and distress, so one should be detached from the materialistic way of life and be automatically equiposed in both cases. Generally, we get something desirable, we are very happy, and what we get something undesirable, we are distressed. And when we get something undesirable, we are distressed. But if you are actually in the spiritual position, these things will not agitate us. To reach that stage, we have to practice unbreakable devotional service. Devotional service to Krishna without without deviation means engaging oneself in the 9 process of devotional service, chanting, hearing, worshipping, offering respect, etc., as described in the last verse of the 9th chapter. That process should be followed. Naturally, when one is adapted to the spiritual way of life, he will not want to mix with the materialistic men. That would go against his grain. One may test himself by seeing how far he is inclined to live in a solitary place without unwanted association. Naturally, a devotee has no taste for unnecessary sporting or cinema going or enjoying some social function, because he understands that these are simply a waste of time. There are many research scholars and philosophers who study sex life or some other subject, but according to Bhagavad Gita, such research work and philosophical speculation have no value. That is more or less nonsensical. According to Bhagavad Gita, one should make research by philosophical discretion into the nature of soul. One should make research to understand the self. This is recommended here.
As far as self-realization is concerned, it is stated here that Bhakti Yoga is especially practical. As soon as there is a question for devotion, one must consider the relationship one should
must consider the
uh,
relationship between
one as soon as there is a question of devotion, one must consider the relationship between the super soul and the individual soul. The individual soul and the super soul cannot be one, at least not in the bhakti conception, the devotional conception of life. This service of the individual soul to the supreme soul is eternal, nityam, as it is clearly stated. So bhakti or devotional service is eternal. One should be established in that philosophical conviction.
In the Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.11, this is explained. Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yaj jnanam advayam. Those who are actually knowers of the absolute truth know that the self is realized in three different phases as Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan. Bhagavan is the last word in the realization of the absolute truth. Therefore, one should reach up to that platform of understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus engage in the devotional service of the Lord. That is the perfection of knowledge.
Beginning from practicing humility up to the point of realization of supreme truth, the absolute personality of Godhead, this process is just like a staircase beginning from the ground floor and going up to the top floor. Now on this staircase there are so many people who have reached the first floor, the second or third floor, etc. But unless one reaches the top floor, which is the understanding of Krishna, he is at a lower stage of knowledge. If anyone wants to compete with God and same time make advancement in spiritual knowledge, he will be frustrated. It is clearly stated that without humility, understanding is not truly possible. To think oneself God is most puffed up. Although the living entity is always being kicked by the stringent laws of material nature, he still thinks, I am God, because of ignorance. The beginning of knowledge, therefore, is amanitva, humility. One should be humble and know that he is subordinate to the Supreme Lord. Due to rebellion against the Supreme Lord, one becomes subordinate to material nature. One must know and be convinced of this truth.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. Okay.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma Shri Guru Bando mui savadhana mate Bando mui savadhana mate Bando mui savadhana mate Savadhanamate Jahara prasade bhai E bhabaturiya jai Jahara prasade Krishna prapti hoye jaha पद्मवाक्य चिते ते कुरियाख्या गुरुमुख और ना करी हो मने आशा और ना करी हो श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति श्री गुरु चरणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा जे प्रसादे पूरे सर्व चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे प्रभु से दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो ज्ञान प्रेम भक्ति जाह होइते अविद्या विनाश जते भक्ति जाह प्रेम भक्ति जाह होइते अविद्या विनाश जते मम वेदे गाय जहर चरितो श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु अधम जनर बंधु गुरु लोकना लोकेर जीवाना लोकना हा प्रभु कोरो दया देह मोरे पद छाया प्रभु हा प्रभु कोरो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया प्रभु दया देहो मोरे पद छाया एबे जस घुष त्रिभुवाना एबे जस शिला प्रभु पादो इलो शरणा शिला प्रभु पाद पतित पावना पतित पावना जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय प्रभु पद जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा जय गुरुदेवा नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णा प्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमो हरि बोल भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिन् इति हे नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे नमस्ते हरिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत शादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे 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 कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि हरि बोल शिला प्रभुपाद की जय बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल जय शिला प्रभुपाद की जय down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him, ecstatic prema emanates, by him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor, and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the three worlds. We take the shelter of the lotus feet. spirit